Interesting outcome of that press conference by Raphael Tuju yesterday. There was a lot of reactions, and we still expect a lot of reactions stemming from that statement from Raphael Tuju. In fact, tomorrow on Sidebar, we'll be talking about the evictions. The Mao issue is very big, and we can't ignore it. We'll be talking about it from several angles, and we'll have guests in studio who will definitely tell us what's happening. This is political. This is something that has been used for many generations, especially the last 3-4 elections. They've been using it. So we'd like to dissect it and would like to know what really is happening in the Mao. And just on that issue, I'd like to pose a question to my guests here. But just before I speak to them, the Cabinet Secretary Interior, Fredrick, we spoke earlier about him at the School of Government, but later he's expected to appear before the Departmental Committee on Sports, Culture and Tourism. That will be at Continental House. Now, one of the issues they'll be asking CS Matiang'i if he appears is in regards to the petition by Honorable George Theory, a Member of Parliament, over the harassment and confiscation of slots and gaming machines belonging to the members of several counties and amusement gaming society. So Matiang'i would be appearing later. If he appears during the course of our show, we'll definitely be crossing live to listen to him, because this is one of the things he's been doing. He's been destroying some of those things to preserve the youth and all. So that's one of a very important story that we'd like to follow up. So if he appears before the Departmental Committee on Sports and Culture during this live broadcast, we'll definitely be going there to speak to, to listen to what he has to say about that. And we're following that story for you. And of course, the Roraka land scandal is also another issue that we're talking about on Sidebar tomorrow. It's a huge thing. It's taken a political twist and all. It's very important that we settle that. So tomorrow, make sure you tune in for Sidebar, because those are some of the things we'll be speaking to. But as I promised, I'll be posing this question just before I join my guest. The issue here is Mao, and Fredrick Okang'o is here. We have Gabriel Muthuma, and we have David Osiany joining us in studio with this. Gentlemen, before we begin our discussion, I'd just like your response on the Mao issue. It's a huge issue, and we see the kind of reactions, and yesterday there was even more reactions from it. Let me get your reactions just briefly on the issue of Mao and the exchange between Tuju and several leaders from that. I'll begin with you, Okang'o, in the issue of Mao.
Thank you, Ken. I think the government has an obligation to protect, manage and conserve the environment, and that is what they are doing. However, the political quarters believe that the way it is in which it is being done, it is inhumane. Remember, this is happening at a time when we have got cold. July is a very cold season, and again, look at how it is being done. The torching of the houses, there are schools that are being shut down, children are not going to school, but that is not the issue. Every Kenyan has a right to healthy and clean environment. That is a constitutional requirement, Article 42. And this requirement can only be achieved if the state and the people of Kenya achieve the obligation under what is called Obligation to Protection of Environment in Article 69. That the state shall provide for public participation to ensure that environment is protected. Number two, the state shall also interfere with anything that will come along in endangering the environment conservation. So, in my opinion, I think that the president is doing the right thing. However, it has been politicized because Mao is a political tool in this country, right from 205 all the way. If you look at the number of people that are occupying Mao, we are told, there were 7,000 occupants before. And then the number rose to 8,000. Prior to 2003 election, to 2013 election and the 2017 election, the number has now gone up to 12,000. For sure, you cannot ignore the fact that Mao is an emotive and hot issue that is politically instigated.
Okay, I'm just wondering from the top of my mind how humane this can be. But let's talk to Muthuma, your views about what's happening.
That's a very good question you've asked. Yes. How humane can this be? You know, I've actually tried dissecting that question ever since this issue of Mao came up. And one thing, Ken, I think that comes out very clearly, and my good friend has actually alluded to it. Yes, the government has, it's mandated to protect the environment. we don't need to be ignorant at this point to realize that our forest and vegetation cover has been dwindling. That's a report that has been made very clear by the agencies that have actually been bringing out these reports. So as we do so, we are also talking about, our economic or the economic factor that has actually been affected virtue of this. Encroachment is something that has been happening. My only problem, and I agree with you, almost 110%, is that the issue of Mau has been politicized. It did not start now. Way back in 2009, this is the same thing we're talking about. But one thing I think, Ken, we also need to talk about is the encroachment of the forests.
We'll talk about that.
This is something that has happened. So Mau in particular, as we talk about Mau, let us also realize how it all started. And if you leave 10 families, trust you me, before you say cut and a half, many people will encroach into the forest. We were told the people who lived within were actually hunters and gatherers. That can be understood if not condoned. But you know what happened? Farmers came in. And when I tell people, Osiany, the issue is not just about living or going where the cut line is. That's not the issue. The issue we are talking about is disturbing the forest and the forest and the vegetation cover. That's not, the logging. It all started in all those things. Probably it's not these families that are doing that. Probably they are not involved in logging. But the fact that they are there, it creates an opportunistic environment for people to do all those things.
Gabriel, is this really to protect the Mau against logging or to protect Mau against encroachment? Because there are two things here that we need to get right. It's either we are protecting Mau against encroachment, because to me encroachment then would simply mean that people get into the forest to occupy land to build and not necessarily to log. Then we can get them out of the forest and
it's creating an opportunistic environment. Hear me good on this one. Half of the tea factories or heavy tea plantations that you've had, which have actually encroached into the forests, how did they come about? They are not owned by the peasants. No, they are owned by very wealthy individuals.
Okay.
And so when you open that, it becomes actually a floodgate of people to come in. And before you say cut and a half, like I was telling you, you'll say, where was the government, when all this took place? So I think it is good, the government, to move in at this time, remembering very well. Hare, the Cheche forest, where did those people come from? These were the Abadeas and the Mount Kenya. At one point, they had to be removed.
Okay, so you get one person in, then you get the whole community in.
Of course, and it becomes difficult to remove them.
Your initial comments on the Mau encroachment, and especially what was happening yesterday, the exchange between Raphael Tuju. Of course, not exchange, but he had a press conference, and we had lots of reactions from that press conference.
Well, Mau. Ken, I worked in the Prime Minister's office for a short stint when this whole issue was alive, when there was a Mau Water Towers Agency headed by Hassan Nur Hassan, a task force. And I'm going to take a weird twist on this issue. My hunch is that talk about corruption has gained so much traction that you needed a legitimate and viable detour from corruption. You needed a departure from this talk on corruption by giving Kenyans fodder. And I do not think I want, and I implore, not that I don't think I want, that's an order. I would implore our media houses not to lose focus. This whole corruption issue is so big. And if we try and start bringing up other issues, you see now today we are here, we are talking about Mau. The adulterated fuel will probably take a back burner. It will not even be an issue when that's within the energy sector. I am sorry for those who feel targeted with this corruption menace, but I, as a citizen of this country, I just want the damn thing dealt with.
Okay.
And I understand where probably the presidency or the country is going with. What is happening now is not what has started under this regime. Right. Raila Odinga lost votes because of it.
Okay.
And it is easy to drag his name back into it, Ken. But there is no way, for example, that President Uhuru Kenyatta, I think there's no way legitimately, is going to speak about the Big Four agenda, one of them being food security, when you are not going to take care of the water towers, which are the catchment areas for our waters and the source of our many rivers, which are the basis and source of food in this country. So my hunch is, we are taking a very brilliant detour from
real issues.
the real issues,
Okay.
which have so far gained so much traction. Now, I have a background in political psychology. I have a postgraduate diploma in political psychology of populism. I know how it goes. And I feel bad when my friend, because Murkomen is my friend, I've known him not yesterday. We worked with him at the office of the Prime Minister then.
Okay.
I feel bad when you want to take a serious issue for the country
And
that puts
politicize
to
it.
risk
Okay.
the future of the nation and politicize it.
Okay.
So you ask me,
Yeah.
let's get back to facts. Where are we
Okay.
with Kenya Power? Where are we with the
NYS?
pipeline? Where are we with NYS? Where are
Ruaraka.
we with Ruaraka?
All
Where
right.
are we?
Hold on. Gentlemen, I can understand if you watch Amina Mohammed, why she is so careful with her words, you know. Looking at what has happened between the CS Farida Karone just the other day, you know, her statement, and she was not on that docket. Amina has not been on that docket. She was on foreign affairs. Now you bring her here, and she has to answer questions regarding her. So we have to understand her.
No, but not only that, I mean, she used a very good word. She said, Ambassador Amina, she's diplomatic. But don't forget something. I mean, she's also a very good lawyer. And the issue is not about her searching for words. She had to express facts, which is what she has done. The report that got to me, and probably my colleagues who sit here, is the task force committee. They were mandated to look before the land was purchased. They wrote a report. And that's what, you know...
That was the basis for this.
Yes. She said, there is that report. In fact, if the Senate read that report, Amina needed to not have gone there. Because everything is included in that report. They suggested and recommended that that deal should not go forward. So what we need to question...
How did it go forward?
PS, the former PS and CS, or the current, the former administration, or the people who signed it to that deal, was...
Who are those, Gabriel?
Of course, there was CS Matiang'i, who
Yeah.
was the
Education.
then,
Yes.
and the PS.
Was that Belio
Belio Kipsang, yes.
Okay.
What that report recommended, why was it not heeded? That is a very simple, question that needs answers that are not complex.
Okay.
We have to wait and see what
I
comes
see
out of that.
Osiany doesn't want this. He wants us to go back to corruption. But I'll have to discuss
No, but it's
this.
corruption.
Well, it's corruption we're discussing.
I don't know how to sanitize it.
I understand.
You can't sanitize it.
I understand where Amina is coming from. Amina is a career diplomat.
Right.
Yes.
But Amina also understands that whatever you say in Parliament is on record.
Yes.
It can be used against you in a court of law. And you know it's video recorded. So you cannot renege on your words after you speak them. But this Ruaraka scam or saga is just... It's mind-boggling.
It's true.
You look at Mzemburu speaking, you almost have a hunch he's saying the truth. But you also don't really know because you look at the facts. You ask yourself who is right, who is wrong. And this is why I have said, in fact, when we talk about lie detectors, Ken Mijungu, I want you to put, one of the things you need to put in your studio
Is lie detector?
is a lie detector. So that when you call some of these guys here, tell them, so are you going to take a lie detector test in front of the whole country? So that we know who says the truth. So that we are not dealing with people's emotions.
Did you listen to
perception?
Mburu the other day?
Yes, I did. That's what I'm saying. I mean, he sounded so genuine, so offended. He was such a victim. But when you read the facts again, you get the hunch it is so rotten. You know, so this is why I'm saying we should not be gotten off some of these things. We need to get to the crux of the matter, and I cannot wait. I'm told that almost 10 CSs are implicated in this. Here goes the singular chance for the President of the Republic of Kenya to prove to all and sundry that he has taken the war on graft seriously. We have seen it happening, and I love what has happened so far. Nordin Haji has been excellent, but I want people jailed. DCI, Kinoti has been amazing, but I want people jailed. When we make corruption painful, and people see that you cannot come, loot, and go enjoying the loot, that all is done is just to be fired, then they will know that we are serious about graft. It is what Bachelet did in Chile, we must do it in Kenya.
Okay, Fred.
Well, Ken, I sometimes I look at how the members of parliament interrogate these CSs, and you wonder. But first thing first, the the cabinet secretary, they have got, first of all, individual responsibility. Then they have a collective responsibility to the president. And that's why all these arrows are now pointing at the president. This land, there was a task force, as my colleague has said. But look, how did the government buy its own land? Because that is what is now happening. Today, you're
convinced it's the government
Ken,
land. It's public land.
The land that belongs to this country, especially what is called public land, the government can acquire it through sale, through buying from an individual, or a land that has not been claimed.
Okay.
That means, either way, this land, whether it was a land that is lying idle, it is public land. Whether it is a land that was bought from a private owner and now it is to the government, we now classify it as public land under Article 62. What that means is the government spent money on its own property. It is very sad that 1.5 billion had been paid and these guys were waiting to receive another 1.7 billion. That is not the issue. The issue is who authorized the payment from the government to acquire its own property.
Why not? How was it authorized? Why who? Why not how?
Why who? Because the people in charge have got what is called Administrative Act. They owe people of Kenya a duty of care to protect the public property. And that's why Osiany is very keen on that corruption. Even if you look at Mao, all these things boil back to corruption because somebody wanted to make money. Now, if there are people that have been mentioned that they are involved, we have a culture in this country where you are mentioned and you live to fight. You say, I would rather die. 100%. This time, I think the war on graft has reached at the doorstep of President Kenyatta, and he has an opportunity to make things happen. We have seen the political goodwill that has been seen in fight against graft. What Kenyans want to see now in the land saga is to ensure that all the people, whether they are 20, 15, 10 cabinet secretaries, taken to court, charged, and if found guilty, jailed. Not only jailed, but recover the 1.5 billion because somebody approved.
Okay. Okay.
This.
Okay.
And I get this thing of being thrown under the bus, and I think, Senator Kajwang has said it, and I think this we need to amplify it. You see, I don't see any need why somebody would feel a lot of pressure for them to talk facts. I think CS Farida Karonai, when she came to the same committee, she spoke, in the honest of things. She said, the way these things were done, there was a serious illegality that took place. That's the very same thing CS Amina has just said. Unless you want these people to sanitize those facts, which at this point you can't do, because at some point, the back must stop somewhere. And by the way, it looks very bad. As my colleague has said, government buying its own land, where the instruments of ownership, Governor Mike Sonko is telling you, I have them. They are in City Hall. Again, I mean, do you see how bad it looks?
How bad does it look when CS Farida Karonai says this is private land, right? Before they say, before Parliament, right? This is private land. She said it. And even she said that the schools there risk being evicted because we realize they're built on private land, right? She said that. Then the following day, Sonko comes and Sonko says, this is public land. How bad does it look?
In fact, I remember the first time CS Farida went, she spoke about the illegality, that there are things that were not done right. But if I was just to deviate a little bit from those two CSs, what I'd be so concerned about is the report that came from the task force. Let me tell you, Ken,
I'd like to know the contents of that report.
That to me, I think that is what breaks the camel's back.
Okay.
Because they gave out a report and recommended, don't go ahead with these patches.
But it was
we need to note, Ken.
But Ken,
we need to note.
Even as we say that, that the reason why I want to believe this is a public land, and as Sonko tabled that evidence, public land vests and is trusted in the hands of the county.
Okay.
Sonko is the county governor of Nairobi. Where the hell would Sonko lie while he has evidence? And the constitution says that that land, if it is within the county, it is vested in the hands of the county, governed by the governor. So if there's business that is happening in government, and the county governor, where Nairobi is, has tabled a report and said, you know what, these lands belong to the public, and this is the report. If that land was sold from the public to an individual, then that is now what we need to understand.
Okay. Osiany, you saying
No,
something?
I think, for the pedestrian and just a normal citizen seated in the corner of Elgeyo Marakwet or Ruotogi, Kenyatike, or wherever it is, they are very confused. Who is saying the truth? If the CS for land can come and say this is private, then the governor for Nairobi, under whose jurisdiction this land is, says this is public land. Who are we going to trust? And this is why we need men and women of honor and integrity in these offices, who can neither be bought nor sold.
Just hold your thought there. This is related. The information Sonko gave was based on the fact that this was private land that had been acquired by government.
Yes.
Then it became public land now.
And what was the CS saying? That
It
it's
is
still
private land.
Now this is it. And the reason why it becomes hard to trust who and what in this is this owner of the land also accuses Sonko of being corrupt, seeking kickbacks, allotting 800 plots in his past. It's such a mess, we don't even know who to trust, who not to trust.
Okay.
The arm of government that was entrusted with investigation into such issues like ESCC died in 1239. I don't even know how long ago, in the 11th century. So that's why I'm saying the DCI must constantly remind us and show himself capable of being above par and being impartial. It's that impartiality that will give us the truth. Because even if you are the president of Kenya, the president of Kenya does not investigate. He doesn't have the land records of this country. If he relies on the land's CS, and the land CS comes and tells him, this is private land, yet his investigations show, contrarily, this is public land. Who am I going to trust?
I'm coming.
The same way I saw there was a difference in communication between Adan Mohammed and CS Matiang'i that had to be realigned.
Okay.
We must realign. We need to know the truth sayers and keep them.
Okay.
The people who don't say the truth, kick them out.
I'd like to interest you gentlemen in something that is coming up, and this will really interest you. Yeah. Now, the Finance and Trade Committee vetting, they are vetting Ben Chumo.
Who has been suspended from Kenya Power?
Yes, not suspended from Kenya Power. He was the former MD Kenya Power. Yes. Just the other week he was arraigned in court. Now, Kennedy Muredi will be reporting this. Very interesting. I know this will interest you. Ben Chumo, formerly of KPLC, appears before the Finance and Trade for vetting. He was named SRC, Salaries and Remuneration Commission. We'll talk about that when it comes up. Let's go back to Mao. I mean, this country is interesting.
No, we are not going to Mao. Let me talk about Ben.
You want to talk about this? He's not come up.
This is the problem.
He's not come up.
This is the problem.
He's not come up for vetting.
Let's talk about corruption. This is Ben Chumo. This is Ben Chumo.
Yes, just hold
on a minute, Gabriel. This is Ben Chumo, who is implicated in a corruption case of acquiring transformers that were malfunctional at a cost that can build a whole referral hospital in my county in Migori. All right? And one would argue, and this is why we need to fix these things here going forward. One would argue that Mutudo was under investigation when he was actually vetted by Parliament to become the chair of NACADA. Why not Chumo? But this is why I'm saying, and Gabriel needs to tell his friends on the other side that you need to fix the country once and for all for the interest of the nation.
Yes.
If Ben Chumo is implicated and we are giving him a leeway, of course the president appointed him. The president did not know that he was implicated in this.
Yeah.
It is the prerogative of the parliament now to rise above these things and say, hey, we will be the bigger brothers in helping the fight against graft.
And by the way,
and when you talk graft, the reason I'm saying,
Osiany.
but probably, initially I didn't think so much of this big four agenda. But the more I look at it, the more it makes sense to me. It is because of the big four agenda that now we even have these other issues of whatever.
Yeah.
Because of food security, which is an important
Right.
thing. And food security doesn't happen on its own. You talk about enhancing manufacturing, which is number one of the big four agenda.
Yes.
You cannot enhance manufacturing without power and energy. You look at Sony Sugar, where I was brought up, and Fred Okang'o and I know very well, we are both products of that sugarcane plantation and farm. And you, and Ken Mijungu. Today Sony is crippled. Today Sony Sugar is crippled, and they owe the government debts to the tune of billions. 30% of that debt is debt to be paid on electricity bills, which may be unfair because they are inflated and overquoted.
Yes.
How are you going to enhance manufacturing, therefore, if you do not deal with corruption? Constantly, we must link the war against graft, in my estimation, to what the president may really want to achieve.
Okay.
So let's get to Ben Chumo. Are the parliamentarians going to be the ones who are going to pass a man who is being accused of corruption? Is he the only one who can hold that office?
Why should they even vet?
By the way, I thought they were not.
Ken Muredi is reporting. He just sent us this.
You know, Ken,
Yes.
somebody must have misadvised the president.
In terms of appointment?
Appointing.
Okay.
If this is an issue that was under investigation, the intelligence in this country must have also informed the president,
And
or
should have
ought to
known
have
there
informed the
was
president that there
investigation.
is this gentleman called Ben Chumo
Who does
is
the clearance?
under investigation,
Who does the clearance
and
before the president gets
appointing
the
him
name?
or nominating him for such a position would jeopardize the whole process. Today, I would want to condemn that parliament who is vetting Ben Chumo, because under responsibility of leadership, the office you occupy, first of all, it must bring honor to the nation and dignity to the people that you lead. That office today that Ben Chumo would want to hold is not going to bring honor to the nation, is not going to bring dignity to the people. Number two, the integral issue of Ben Chumo have been put into question because he has been mentioned in the multi-billion scandal at Kenya Power and Lighting Company. There is no way that his conscience can even allow him to lead even a single person in this country. He cannot. Let Ben Chumo relax.
I think what they are going to invoke, obviously, is the usual cliche of innocent until proven guilty. And I think that when it comes to parliament, the likes of Osiany, I know they will hit the road running. They'll be sending tweets all over. But I think it is also good. It is also good, like what my colleagues have said. It's good to look under the hood. And I think at this point, that's what Parliament must do. Yeah. Is he the right person right now, given the fact that the president and the instruments that are charged to deal with corruption, I mean, the mood of the people, and that's why half of these things, Osiany, are not going away. The mood of the people is so right. The people want to see the culprits, or are people held to an element of accountability. And if we are going to move in that direction, Ken, I think Parliament must read the mood of the people. They must stand up to be counted and say, my friend, this is what you've been accused. It is not a small deal, by the way. Buying equipment that you know is going to be used. And by the way, it is serious. When you're talking about transformers, well, that's a serious business. There are things that can actually cause loss of lives, as we've seen in the past. All right, so it is not. It's not a small thing. But one thing I've come to realize, Osiany, is that corruption follows the same paradigm shift. It does not matter where you are. It's the very same thing you're talking about, Roraka, where, I mean, it's so convoluted. Who did what did who? I mean, when you start asking, you are just given a quote and you went on it. Where was the surveyor? Before you pay this amount, it wasn't budgeted for. Where did you get the money? How did you write to Treasury? How did that money move?
I had a mentioned in Parliament.
Yes,
Parliament. 2 months they had 1.5 billion shillings.
Exactly.
2 months.
And by the way, it was not part of their budget. They had to write for a special approval through Treasury. And that's why when you hear somebody like Osiany saying 10 CSs, I was wondering where are all these 10 CSs going to come from? If they're actually. So it is, it is all over. And the issue of it following the same paradigm shift, it does not matter whether it's in KPLC, whether it's Kenya Pipeline, they all feed from the same trough. Okay. And I think at this point, if the big four, and I want to be very clear on this, if the big four are going to be realized, Osiany, corruption has to be killed. Otherwise,
That's
you cannot
it.
you cannot
you
get
cannot,
the two.
you cannot
It
go
won't
for the
happen
big
now.
four. You cannot unhinge.
With the kind of
you cannot unhinge the graft against corruption from the big four. No. Whether you talk enhancing manufacturing, whether you talk about universal healthcare cover,
because these are massive projects, by the way, that require a lot of resources.
Whether you talk about food security or housing, how are you going to do? Because the moment you let go, you know, when you talk about land grabbing, you obviously connect it to the housing of which is a big four. Totally. Where if the land is grabbed, public land is grabbed, where are we going to build the affordable housing? Where are we going to build them? That's part of the big four. So what I am saying in a nutshell is, you know, for the first time in the history of the country, we have a president who has decided that there will be collateral damage. Some will be my friends, but I have to face this head on.
Okay.
And the best we can do at this point, in my estimation, is to, one, support him, then hold him to his words.
Okay.
You said you will, have you.
Let's see. All right, gentlemen. All right, welcome back. And Ben Chumo right there being vetted for the position of chairperson SRC to replace Sarah Serem. Very interesting there. We didn't think that he would go through with the vetting, but the members of parliament have decided to vet him. Let's see the outcome of that. And let me bring the discussion here now that we have a few minutes, gentlemen, on the clock. It's only fair. I think let's leave Ben Chumo out. Let's talk about corruption and more. We have about 7 minutes on the clock. Let me start with Osiany. Or you want to comment about Ben Chumo?
I don't want to comment about Ben Chumo. I think if he had a conscience, he himself would not have shown up there. But that's a story for his conscience. I'm not the judge of whether he's guilty or not, but conscience should have informed the move because he is implicated. I, however, have picked one of the most important things for me, which again feeds into Kina Gabriel's Big Four agenda, which is that the cost of power in this country today averages at well over 9.7 cents per kilowatt hour. We are talking about, Chumo is telling us that when he left, which is less than 1.5 years ago, when Tarus took over, it was at 2.34. Now, you see the sense in cracking the whip on these thieves, if at all he is saying the truth? If at all. Because again, we do not know whether what he is saying is PR stunts and gimmicks. There is no way that we are going to catch up in terms of industry and enhancing manufacturing, which is the first pillar of the Big Four agenda. There is no way we are going to catch up with countries like the big tigers, the Asian tigers, and other developed countries. If, for example, you go to Malaysia, it's about 1.6 cents per kilowatt hour. That's the cost of power on a large scale, commercial, who are the greatest users. You remember the president even gave an order for lower tariffs in the night for manufacturing companies and industries. Was that order even effected? And then we want to laugh with this corruption issue and get diversionary tactics around it? And then if we have to fix this country, if we are going to achieve this Big Four, because inevitably it seems then that is what the president has decided to pursue, and he is the president. If we are going to achieve them, we must get to the nitty-gritties around how are they going to be achieved at micro and macro levels. And at micro, I started by saying the cost of power is a hindrance to industry. Pan paper closed down in Webuye. You go to Mumia's Sugar, my friend, it's burdened by a 6 billion debt, out of which I can almost assure you 2 billion shillings is cost of electricity, which is a false digit. How do you make people pay for what they can't and cripple industries and then expect that we are going to laugh about it and clap and say, no, let us not fight graft? We have to, because we have seen far too long that it seems the only way to the top in this country is through the garden of graft, and that garden, we must clean it.
All right.
Ken, you see, and I've heard so many people talk about this power issue, but there are certain facts that don't come out very clearly. And when they don't come out, actually people think, this issue of production cost will never go down. The fact of the matter is this, Osiany, and I believe so many Kenyans don't know this. Do you know we have surplus in power?
In this country?
In this country. Okay. We have surplus. The problem we have
is greed.
Is the last mile and piping the electricity. And on this one, I would give the deputy president, because he's everywhere talking about last mile. But when you see somebody bringing in,
not his project. That was one project.
Even though it wasn't, they understood that yes, what we require now is transmission.
Okay.
That's where we fail. If we get this right, that's why they've come up with issues of skill and efficiency. You see, Ken, this is where we are failing. And when the deputy president goes out and says, this is where we want to electricity to penetrate in this way. And then people who should be helping you bring this on board are the same people who are importing generators that are faulty. It actually takes you back.
Yeah.
All right? It's not the faulty issue as such. It is for us looking at this, and the domino effects that the big four may not be realized if we continue in this.
What is the need
that
of taking,
corruption? Exactly.
What is the need of taking power everywhere when it cannot be afforded by many?
So skill and efficiency of this one, I think,
for
should
me,
be.
my approach would be slightly different. Let us look at the genesis of theft of public money.
Okay.
Right from Parliament. The Parliament has got a duty of revenue allocation. If the Parliament used a wrong formula, they allocated revenue based on what was not most recent audited accounts of 2013-2014 instead of 2016-2017, which was at 1 trillion plus. The other one was at 900 billion. It means there's a difference of over 500 billion. He mentioned that even the Ruaraka land, the buying the money was quickly looked for somewhere and it was found. That means in our assessment as a political party, Third Way Alliance Kenya, some of this money that are now being misappropriated are part of the 500 billion that is being reallocated into government departments, entities, and so on and so forth. And Ben Chumo, I think he should respect the responsibility of leadership. Whatever he has done, where he has been mentioned before, does not promote public confidence. Ben Chumo should just leave it.
And by the way, very quickly, I think the chairman should be serious about this thing. Okay, this is about Kenyans and Kenyans. I think he's in somewhat gagging. You saw what he did. Yeah, members of parliament. Let them ask the tough questions. That's why you're there.
All right.
Where is my camera? My last word to the president. I like talking to the president.
You have to conclude.
Mr. President Uhuru Kenyatta, this country is choking under the weight of corruption. We want to see you doing what it takes. This is going to be your legacy. It doesn't matter how many wrongs have been in the past. If you mean this, grab them, arrest them, jail them, reacquire the property they've gotten with our looted money, and save this country for my child and daughter Teko and the many children of this country.
Well said, gentlemen. Thank you very much. I know we didn't give you a lot of time, but definitely we'll have you back here. Let me try to have you back on Thursday. There'll be a lot of discussions here, right? And if I can, tomorrow on Sidebar. All these issues will be discussed on Sidebar. Thank you, Osiany. Thank you, Muthuma, and thank you, Fred Okang'o, for coming.